do kind of like a rundown of this controversy and show you both sides. And then what I want to do afterwards is point you to a bigger discussion. So yeah, it seems like Nintendo kind of stepped into it, stepped all the way in it, no boots. And people are asking, has Nintendo lost their minds? Nintendo Switch 2 reveal happened the day prior to this recording. They revealed that the platform is going to be $440 by itself. It's going to come bundled. There's also going to be a bundle with Super Mario Kart World. That's going to be $500. It's going to, we just discovered it's going to feature, it's actually been confirmed that it does have some NVIDIA upscaling in it, better textures and things like that, better performance. They talked a lot about, performance modes, not always being, but, performance modes, targeting 4K or 1080p 60 or 4K 60 if docked. And, what was it, 1080p 120 if docked, and 720 120p if undocked, right? So there's a lot of crazy things that's said around during the direct. Games to a lot of people look good. The attitude towards the direct pretty much was evenly like, yo, this is dope. I mean, there were some naysayers out there, but a lot of people were saying, yo, this was dope. That is until the prices drop. The price for the unit, $440, caused a little bit of a stir. But I think as people thought about it, they weren't too upset about that. I think people were more or less waiting to see if the unit was going to be 500 USD. That would have caused an uproar universally, I think. But the thing that really set the community off is the $90 games if it's somewhat digital, and $80 digital games. Now again, that price isn't across the board, but it's starting to look like that Nintendo first party games might steer that way. And then we got more information about games that were originally Switch titles, that if you want to upgrade them to Nintendo Switch 2 capabilities, the additional price you got to pay for that, people aren't happy. So let's take a look at both sides and tell you what our initial thoughts are. And then we're going to take you to a deeper discussion and show you how to, be part of that discussion. We're going to talk further after we actually look at some hands-on content. All right. But with that said, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, MM2K, Hard Knock Digital Culture, Cloud Dosage, MM2K Gaming, back again with another episode of the Quick Doses, where we talk about the latest and greatest in the video game news that's sparking up conversation in the community. And like I've been saying ad nauseum, we'll point you to a bigger discussion. All right. Do us a huge favor if you haven't already. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, rock those bells for notifications, please. All right. So, let's talk about it, y'all. And in order for me to do that, I have to go here if it will let me. All right, so this is the Nintendo Switch site where it tells you available June 5th, 2025. You can get access to the Nintendo Switch 2. And again, as I said in the bumper, there are two versions. There are the version with just the handheld, the handheld screen, the LCD screen, of course, which is the actual unit, the dock, and the Joy-Cons, right? That's $449. And then there's another SKU that comes bundled with Mario Kart World. That's $500. Again, I some people complain about that, but I don't think that's the more controversial part. The most controversial part were the games, right? So the aforementioned Mario Kart Worlds. If you want to buy that game separately, the game digitally is going to be $80 digital. But here's the bigger kicker. For $90, you can get what they call the physical version, but all it is just like a mini SD card or whatever, or micro SD card that has the license attached to it, and you still got to download the Mammy Jammy. So people really want an uproar about that. Let me just show you some of the things that people have been saying on both sides, right? So this is, for all intents and purposes, I'm familiar with this person. This is a pro PlayStation account on Twitter. Now they did start off with saying, hinting that there wasn't no upscaler or one wasn't seen, really trying to underplay the visual output of what the unit would be capable of altogether, right? But then that got debunked. Wario had put out here all the stuff, the capabilities, the Switch 2 screen is 1080p up to 120p, up to 120 frames per second, LCD screen with HDR support, Joy-Cons, magnetic, bigger SR buttons, larger control sticks, mouse control, confirm for each Joy-Con, improved speakers, clear audio, built-in mic, 3D audio, new stand, 2 USB-C ports, one top, one at the bottom, 256 gigabytes of storage, new dock supports 4K, fan ventilation in dock, BC with Switch 1, and backwards compatible with Switch 1, physical and digital. But then on top of that, in regards to the things that were hinted here about there not, possibly being upscaling or anything like that, this came out, which Wario put out from from the video. It says, sorry for that mic hit. It says Nintendo Switch 2 unveiled, takes performance to the next level, powered by a custom NVIDIA processor featuring an NVIDIA GPU with dedicated ray tracing cores and tensor cores for stunning visual and AI-driven enhancements. With over 1,000 engineer years across every element. Hold on. Let's see. Can we make that bigger? What did I do? Oh, let's close that out. Okay. So across every element, with the ray tracing effects and all, and lifelike lighting, reflections and shadows. So it has tensor cores, AI performance, and all this other stuff. So it talks about, it says variable refresh rate. So it comes with VRR capabilities via NVIDIA G-Sync in handheld mode, ensures ultra smooth, tear-free gaming. So I don't think that the performance was the issue for people. I think a lot of us liked what we saw in some of the demonstration from the stream. But again, here's where, well, maybe everybody weren't impressed. Shuei Yoshida said it was underwhelming to him until the From Software had showed up. But that's an interesting take. I thought it was more interesting that they got a From Software exclusive. I wasn't overwhelmed or overjoyed with the game per se. I just liked what I saw, how the game looked. Because if we're honest with ourselves, this is a Switch. And starting with the Wii, Nintendo said, we are no longer basing our games off of the ceiling of graphical and performance prowess of the best out there. If you want a Nintendo product, starting with the Wii, you want a Nintendo product because of its uncanny features, and then now its portability, right? And some of the unorthodox things that we try to do with games, like, all right, everybody. Mic check. What is up, everybody? It's your boy MM2K. I'm here with Cold Blood Sensei. We are back again. Special podcast today and tomorrow around this time. We're going to sit with y'all. We're going to talk about the latest and greatest in news, the big topic. And then, of course, we're going to be back on Friday for a full-fledged NRO podcast, where this week, unless something changes, we have Mag coming through. Don't forget, we got middle-aged gamer guy coming through this Friday. NRO podcast. We're going to be kicking the shit out of this gaming news and whatever is the latest and greatest coming. We're going to talk about it with Mag. But before we get into all that, what's happening in the news today, let's talk to the other co-host, see how he's doing. Cold Blood. Did you order your Switch 2 yet?
No, not really. No.
Okay. Did you get your Mario Kart tattoo yet?
Man, why you gotta spoil the surprise?
They said you were going to come out on stage like Peter Moore did with the Halo tattoo and reveal your Kirby kissing a star tattoo and shit. Now I'll tell you guys this, before we went live, we were having a very unsavory, it was all me. I can't blame Cold Blood. It was me having a very unsavory conversation about the tendencies of Nintendo gamers. I'll just say this, because I can't say what I want to say on FCC airwaves. I'll just say this. Today's Nintendo gamer, y'all are not the Nintendo gamer. Y'all don't have the mindset of the Nintendo gamer that originated this shit that I grew up with. Like, I was buying the Nintendo Powers every time they came out. I was one of the gamers that Nintendo used to have a hotline. So if you were stuck in the game, because games were hard back then, man. As soon as you turned your game off, unless there were save codes or there was a battery in there, you lost all your progress. You had to start all over again. That's why a lot of us would run up our parents' light bills and leave our Nintendos on all day and shit and get our asses whooped when the parents found them. So games were hard. So to beat the game, Nintendo had a hotline where you could actually call and talk to customer service, and they would tell you about the game and how you can get past the part that was hard for you. And it was like $2 per minute and shit like that. So, dude, I was there for it all. You guys are just different, man. That's all I'm going to say. We'll leave it at that. That being said, Cold Blood, what's going on, brother? How you been, man?
Good. Can't complain.
What games you been playing? You been able to get some gaming in so far this week?
No, not really, bro. But I tried Assassin's Creed Shadows with the new PSSR.
What'd you think of it?
I was looking for the pisser and didn't find it.
Oh, you didn't. Oh, you didn't see the update yet, or you?
No. I saw the update. I tried it and I don't see the pisser.
See a difference? Oh, you don't see the. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, bro. Like, I put it in the balance mode, like everyone says, it's the best mode now with PSSR, but I don't see a difference.
You don't see the difference? Oh, okay.
I mean, the game looked great before that. Like visually, I had no problem with it. Like, it didn't fix the character designs.
Well, that's a longer systemic problem, brother. You gonna need more than some pisser to help you with that one.
They are unfortunately stuck in the Ubisoft era of Watch Dogs, bro.
Yeah. Shout out, we got Bulls for Life in the house, man. Good to see you, good brother. We ain't see you in a minute. He says, man, I'm not hung up on that price. Like, I get, man, shit, it's going to go up for everything and everyone, you know. I'm still going to get it. Just do GameFly until the economy eventually is fixed or not. Here, Cold Blood will share his thoughts too. I'm going to share my thoughts. Bulls for Life. Here's what I'm going to say, bro. Now, if you're going to GameFly it, and that's fine. But you're in the U.S. like me. I'm going to tell you this much. I've said this before. Cold Blood thought I was smoking crack, but he said, and when I said I'm willing to pay up to $500 for the Nintendo Switch, and he's like, "What?" I said, if it could do 60 frames per second on these, I was about to say Mario, on these these Zelda games and the Metroid games and the third-party exclusives that they get that I would want to play. Like, if they can do 60 frames on there, I'm willing to pay $500 for it. I said, but I'm not willing to go over $500. It sounds like with the adjustments for the tariffs that they're taking into consideration, it's going to be over $500. I'm out the market. I know things are going up, Bulls for Life, but here's what I will tell you. The reason why, even before these new round of tariffs came, we got to be careful, because there's a lot of people, a lot of them I respect, but there's a lot of people out there that misunderstand what's going on, what Nintendo's doing, and then they're incorrectly pivoting back to the cartridge era. And we're going to get into that. They're pivoting back to the cartridge era and say, see, games were $80 back then, so it justifies the price now. We're going to debunk that here today. But as far as the price of the console, the reason why I'm not willing to pay $500 is because I feel like that if Nintendo course corrects and adjusts the price appropriately to factor in whatever, changing production cost or whatever, it won't hit $500. What am I talking about? United States, or America, North America and Europe are Nintendo's two biggest regions where they make money. Japan is third. But for some reason, in Japan, the cost of the Switch is lower. It's comparable. The price of the Switch and a lot of the game prices are comparable to the Switch 1 release. To me, that's absurd for the simple fact that, again, your top two areas are United States and Europe. Now, I get adjusting for costs for United States because of the tariffs and the change in production costs by going to Vietnam and stuff like that. But Europe, what are you punishing Europe for as well? And secondly, the yen is so low that Nintendo games should at least be 11,000 yen. They're at a maximum, they're 9,700 yen. That's too low. So basically, Bulls for Life, what Nintendo has done is they made some adjustments to factor in some of the price costs, or factoring in the tariffs and change and just regular normal, production cost increases. But a huger chunk of that is them making us pay for the portion that Japan should be paying. And we can confirm this based off of what Sony did. Another Japanese company said, look, the yen is taking too hard of a hit. We gotta adjust these prices. And they adjusted the price of the play, and they inflated the price, the yen price of the PlayStation 5 in Japan. So no other region has to overcompensate for them. And it makes sense to do that because even though their homeland is Japan, they make way more money in North America and Europe. Nintendo, under the same circumstances, says no. Costs are going up everywhere, and it's affecting us more because the value of the yen's going down, but we're going to make y'all pay for it. I can't support that, bruh. I can't support that. I'm all for a Japanese company saying, you know what? We're going to give our native our domestic consumers a little bit more breathing room. I get that. But bruh, you got two big factors happening, or three really. The price of making games are going up because of the price of semiconductors and because of the rarity of them or the understocking of them. So they're going up everywhere, right? You got tariffs, and you got the fact that the yen is low. We're going to pay for all of that, and they're only going to get a nominal bump. Everywhere else, they're getting a bump on the currency level of 10 US dollars. Guess what the bump is as far as games are concerned? Guess what the bump is for games over in Japan? It's $6. It's equivalent to $6. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. If it was equivalent maybe to $8, okay, all right, but $6, and the price of the unit when you adjust for the downfall of the yen, it's comparable to the Switch 1. They're making you pay for the portion that Japan should be paying in this as well. They're putting it all in your lap. So therefore, to me, just as a gamer, doing this almost 4 decades, bro, that's unacceptable to me. And I'm not going to reward any company that slights my hand like that. No, we're not going to do that. Do I expect games to go up cold blood? Do we? Absolutely. But under no shape, form, or fashion are you to do this. How do I know this? How can I say this? Am I just making this up? No, we got an example. Look at what Sony did with PlayStation, another Japanese company that also gets most of its money from North America and then secondly, Europe. They handled this appropriately. And then to adjust for tariffs, now I'm not saying Nintendo had to do this, but they went out of their way to overramp production. And store stuff in warehouses and take the extra hit in this because they got to pay the storage fees. What does Nintendo do? Nintendo lightens the load of their number 3 region and makes number 1 and 2 pay for it. I can't get down with that, man. It's a disregard and a disrespect in the business and consumer relationship. And yes, it's the business's products, and you know they have the final say in their products, but that don't mean that we got to take it. Oh, it's business, man. What is, see, y'all use the word, well, not you, Chicago. There's a lot of people out there, Bulls for Life. There's not a lot of, I'm not talking about you. When I say you, I mean just the general public. A lot of you say it's just a business, and y'all make excuses for these companies to maximize their profits. That's not your job. You're not an investor. You're not an employee. They don't get to maximize their profits off your back just because it's business. There is a barter relationship between the business and the consumer where it's a balancing act. And if you don't handle that balancing act appropriately, then we don't buy your shit. Simple as that. Let's go to the chat. What's up, everyone? Says Muhammad. He says, did anyone see that the Xbox Showcase will no longer have fan fest events anymore? Just digital show from now on. And looks like the propaganda are no longer needed. Yeah, you know what? And Cold Blood brought that to my attention when I was doing my game stream earlier. Yeah, but before we get, that's a great point, Muhammad. Before we get into that, but Cold Blood, what are your thoughts, just real quick again, on like this whole Nintendo situation as far as the price? You think it's fair, it's okay, or we gotta toughen up and deal with it, or what? What are your thoughts?
Bro, I have to pay 90 euros now to play a fucking Switch game. You think I'm gonna tell you it's fair?
But games
you
were
talk about $80
back in the day.
When?
It don't even matter.
When
back
was
in
that?
The 90s. It's a false argument, Cold Blood. It's a false argument.
It's absolutely false. Yeah. Like, games got a stable price of $70 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was decided by everybody, by publishers, by fucking console makers, by fucking Steam. $70 is now the standard.
Mm-hmm.
Who the fuck are you,
mm-hmm.
Nintendo, to tell us, nah, we go against the fucking standard, and because the yen is so weak, we gonna charge, 20 euros, $10 more.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why should we cover the cost of your fuck up in the country? Like, I don't get it. Well, yeah. I seriously don't get it.
Yeah. We might as well.
Like,
go ahead.
Bro, no. $90. You cannot justify a single game costing that. Or $80, really.
No. Not Mario Kart, bro.
Absolutely.
I mean,
y'all can no, bro. They can hate us all they want, bro, but they cannot justify Mario Kart costing that much.
Yeah.
They just can't. Like, look, Black Baron is not even here to tell you we are wrong.
They got a picture of Baron on milk cartons. Okay, we can't find him. Shit, let's go to his, let's go to his YouTube channel and see if he's been active. I bet you not.
Maybe he was, but he ain't on no podcast right now because he knows there's no fucking W for him.
Oh man, Baron Black. Oh shit. Let's see if he's active.
Bro, if he has some shit to say, you gotta show us.
There's
it would be hella funny.
Emperor. Yeah, okay, I keep forgetting that's his name. Emperor Beard. Here he goes. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna show you on the screen. Let's see what he got to say. Oh yeah, he said Nintendo Switch 2 game prices are justified. Hey Barry, you crazy?
Okay, I admit I was wrong. I couldn't think he's that fucking dumb. I'm sorry.
Hey bro, this mug is crazy. Hey look, he got 2 months ago he did a video, GTA 6 confirmed, and he got a picture of the Switch 2. I'll know this fool does it.
Bro, okay, I'm gonna say this: if GTA 6 is coming out on the Switch 2 as a surprise release, that's a fucking W. That's a W right there.
That's a W for Switch. Because, I just hope it's not coming day and date.
That is good, bro. That's gonna be a system seller. You know it.
Yeah.
Even at 30 FPS, bro, low settings, it's gonna be a system seller.
Yeah. I just hope I hope it's at least a year after launch, because if it's a year after launch, that means that the development team is not trying to sacrifice the main version, for the Nintendo Switch version.
Oh, you know, Rockstar is already planning to release that motherfucker on these handheld devices.
Yeah.
Like the Rock Ally and all these underpowered ass PCs.
Yeah,
they already planned for all that.
If they're going to do that, that's fine. Just do it afterwards. But yeah, you do a Borderlands 4 where you're launching it day and date. To me, that's a problem. So one thing I want to address though is that we're hearing these arguments, Cold Blood, about well, these prices are fine because, or the game prices are fine because the console, because game prices need to go up. Well, number one, we've already addressed the console prices.
Bro, you don't even have to elaborate. I say no. As long as this generation is still going on, you have no business raising the fucking price again in the same generation. Nah, this never happened before. And if you do it, well, fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Because if you cannot sell your first party games right now as much as you did in the PS4 era, bro, go and try $80. Go ahead. See what happens.
Yeah.
And Nintendo fans, they're gonna have a fucking shock when all of a sudden they go from $60 a game to fucking 80. Some of these dudes don't even know it yet. Yeah. Because they don't watch directs and whatever. like I talked to what you call him, a co-worker of mine.
Mm-hmm.
He likes Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, did you watch the last Direct? He told me, what is a Direct?
Yeah.
He didn't even know what a Direct is.
Yep.
I said, oh, okay. Well, you know the game's gonna cost you now 90 euros, and he completely just froze up, bro. He was like, what?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I showed him on the retailer that we normally buy our games from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he looked at the price, he told me that this is only at launch, right? This is gonna change, right? After that, it's just pre-order price. I said, no, that's the price. that is the price. He was like, nah, I ain't getting a fucking Switch 2 right now.
Yeah.
If I have to pay prices like this. I also showed him Donkey Kong at 80, because in Europe it's 80 euros.
Yeah.
He looked at me like, okay.
Yeah, I think
he was immediately done, bro. Like after he was paying 60 euros for all his games, he was like, nah, not happening.
Well, Doug has an answer for people that wanted to switch to that can't get a Switch 1. What do you think about Doug's Don Matrick answer? Don Matrick is back.
Well,
what do you think about that?
Let's establish the context first, right? The Don Matrick was talking about internet connectivity, not the affordability of the console.
Yeah, yeah.
Doug Bowser is talking about the affordability, which is much worse. It's actually much worse.
Yeah.
It's Don Matrick on fucking crack, bro. That's what he is. Yeah. You can't afford this piece of shit? We have a worse piece of shit for you.
Yeah. I and before now look, we got people like the homie Bulls for Life who might still be in the market for one. I'm not telling people what to do with their money. You do whatever you want to do with your money.
Never, bro. Go ahead, buy that motherfucker.
Yeah, buy it. It's just when you see us out there in the streets talking about we ain't getting this shit, there's a reason why we're saying it. And in that regard, like if you're just making a justification why you want to get it, no problem, get it. But when we start having these discussions with each other, and Bulls for Life, I'm sorry, I'm using you as an example. You're not doing any of this, by the way. But when people tell Cold Blood and I, well, you guys just need to get used to the adjustment of games or whatever, they use two arguments, which are a false nomer, or a misnomer rather. Number one, they use the argument that game prices haven't gone up in a while. And two, they refer back to the cartridge era. Number one, like Cold Blood said, this has never happened. Let's go all the way back. Okay. Well, before we get to the cartridge era, because the cartridge era is a whole different topic. But after the cartridge era, when PlayStation came on the scene, negated the need for the cartridges anymore. And because of the way they approached distributing games, they helped make games cheaper for consumers. There was a new standard set that, again, like how I talked about earlier, the business in the consumer, they got to barter. Well, it's called barter. Like this. When you talk about business, you got to go back to the days when businesses started. Business was never about, I'm the big business and you bow down to me and I just do. No, it's like, I have a good or a service that you want and I would like to sell it to you. So let's negotiate. There was always a balance and a relationship involved in business. That's the barter, which is at the centrifuge of the business. It was never about, we're just going to do whatever, and you got to take it. And it wasn't about that. So the barter system that was established thanks to PlayStation is what we're going to do is we've now come up with reasonable, more cost-efficient prices for games. This will gradually go up, but it's going to go up in a cadence that is reasonable for both us and you, and one that you can recognize. It started with the PlayStation 1. And I'm using USD here, so if you're outside the United States and you don't recognize these prices, my apologies. But in USD, when the PlayStation 1 first came out, your top of the line games were $39.99. Now, halfway through the gen, now this is what did happen. Halfway through the gen, if the game was imported, had multiple discs, or just whatever, you did have some games that went up to $44.99 halfway through the gen. So the gen started at $39.99. Halfway it went up to $44.99 for some games, for select games that they felt like were bringing out new tech, were more costly to distribute because they were for whatever. But they could justify the cost, and people paid the extra $5 on the second half of the generation, understandably so. Then you go to the PlayStation 2 generation, where the same thing happened. PlayStation 2 comes out. Games are now $49.99, right? Halfway through the gen, you start seeing, again, select some games go up to $54.99 for the same reasons that they went up halfway through the gen during the PlayStation 1 generation. Okay, Xbox 360 generation and the PlayStation 3 generation comes out. Games they start off at $59.99. You see the cadence here? Gamer, at the very onset of the gen, price goes up. People are used to it. Halfway through the gen, you might have some prices gradually go up some more, whatever. But here's what happened. This is where the mistake happened. Halfway through the gen of the 360 generation, they didn't do that $5 thing. Why? Because number one, digital distribution started becoming a thing. More so in the PlayStation 3 360 generation. So the excuse of, we're going to go up an additional $5, there was no precedent for that because games were being bought in a digital fashion, and not a whole bunch, but you could buy games and distribute games digitally, and the digital game was not cheaper than the physical game. Right? Now, you go to the PlayStation 4 generation where they elected not to raise the price. Now, that's where you can say that the console makers probably messed up because they got out of cadence. A lot of them were afraid to raise the price because of some things that were happening globally in the economy. And more importantly, price was a sensitive thing to consumers because of what happened with the PlayStation 3 at launch. So nobody wanted to touch it. So they said, you know what? We're not raising the prices at all. Then game makers started making more money off of more and more money off the digital evolution of the more and more digital games are being sold at the same price as the physical. More digital were being sold. Now, understandably so, because I always make this argument because I understand the business side of it. Game development has skyrocketed. In the PlayStation 3 generation, a AAA game took $50 million to make and market. And it took, maybe 3 to 4 years to develop. Now we're talking about games taking 7 years to 5 to 7 years to develop, and them being as much as $500 million to make and market. Anywhere from 200 million to 500 million to make and market AAA games, right? So that's a significant price hike. So to go to, that's like 10 times. So to go 10 times up in the cost to make and market a game and not have a price hike, I get where you're like, this time around, no, we got to raise the prices. And maybe we're a little bit behind the curve. But here's the problem. You should have started this generation off. Or not, you know what they did? They didn't start the generation off with $70 games. They waited until the games were less cross-generational and they were specific to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, or at least there were PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series versions, and NBA 2K kicked it off and had the first $70 game, and then the rest started to follow. That was it. That was your chance. If you want to go to the old precedent where some games that are utilizing the best technology that are specific to this generation go up $5, I mean, you're still going to get pushback, but that would be a little bit more digestible. But if you're using fantastic tech, if the game blows you, like for instance, next year, when Wolverine comes out, it's like so photorealistic and all this other shit, or intergalactic or what, and you're like, and they're like, okay, we're charging $74.99 for this. You know, you're gonna get pushback. People gonna argue, but it will be a lot more digestible. But for Nintendo to come out with Mario Kart of all games and say, ooh, for a Nintendo game, this looks nice, aka it looks like a PlayStation 4 game, and charge $90 for PlayStation 4 or maybe PlayStation 4 Pro Tech at best, to raise that price medium $20 after you already raised it, that goes against former precedent post the cartridge era. You have no excuses for this. There was a bartering standard already established. New price at the beginning of the generation, at most select games using the best technology or whatever, maybe went up $5 halfway through that gen. You are blowing that off the roof, and now you're proposing $90 games because a generation, you made the decision that you weren't going to go up in prices.
Okay, Moss, explain to the people why Redfall is $70.
And that's another thing. When these games went up in price, it was the AAA games. Like when games went from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2, and that price moved up from $39.99 to $49.99, the games that resembled the PlayStation 1 that were on the PlayStation 2, they didn't go up to $49.99. The developers and the publishers knew better. Those games launched at $39.99, even though they were for the PlayStation 2. We are not utilizing technology. We didn't do, you know what I'm saying? We can't justify top of the line AAA prices for these games. Thus, Redfall should have never been $70. You can't tell me there's $200 to $300 million of development in Redfall. They have slideshows for the cutscenes. And we're not even talking about Redfall. Because I'll tell you this, as crappy and as trash as Redfall is, I guarantee you, costs more to make and market than Mario Kart. We should be having this argument over games that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars to make and market. Not Mario Kart. There is a bartering standard that was established that's for this era that was working fine. They stepped out of line. So maybe what they get to do is the beginning of next generation. make a more significant price bump, but it has to be accepted by the consumer. They made the mistake. But we cannot accept the standard where within, not only did you raise the price after the generation started one time, but you do it again, and you do it in an upwards of $20, maybe even more. Because if you look at Doug Bowser's statement, if you read it in totality, he's not saying, oh, $90 is our limit. He's saying games could be anything. We're going to make a case-by-case basis. So to help you understand this, the next Zelda that's built from the ground, like if this $90 Mario Kart thing blows over, what's stopping Nintendo for the next Zelda that's built from the ground up for the Switch 2? What's stopping them to charge $100 for that? Because we know it's going to be bigger, have more tech utilized in it than Mario Kart. We know that. What's stopping them from charging $100 from that? Thus, brings me to part 2 of this, which again, I'm warning you guys, please be very careful in referencing the cartridge era. Here's the problem with referencing the cartridge era. In the cartridge era, which was the 90s and the early 2000s, I would say it started happening as early as the NES days all the way up to the Nintendo 64 era. What was going on then? Some games were so big and they had to utilize parts that made putting the game on a cartridge and replicating that so expensive that you're talking about mid to early 90s, you could have games that were $70, $80. I talked to you guys about Phantasy Star 4 that me and my cousin, I think it was like around 95 or 96 when that game came out. The game was $80, but he was able to get it cheaper. In 90, we paid $80 for the game, and it was the Wild Wild West. You had some games, not all, but some games that were just all over the place. Why was this? Well, number one, it started happening with the NES and the Genesis games because if you're old enough to remember, most of the games that you played, once you turned the console off, that was it. You turn the console off, you had to start all the way from the beginning. That is unless the game was like a Metroid or a Metal Gear Solid where you had save codes. You know, you would get like anywhere between 30 to 40 characters of random letters and numbers that your ass better carefully write down, and it would save your progress. You know, when you went to go close it, you would get the save code, it would give it to you, then you can turn off the game as long as you wrote it down correctly. So when you went to go play the game again, the save code that you wrote down, you would just punch it back in and start off where you pick up where you left off. And it would be like 30 to 40 characters that you would have to carefully, make sure that you had down right. Now, some games like Zelda were so big that having a save code, they didn't have the technology or the algorithmic ability to program a save code for games that big. Your inventory was too big. The area was too big. So what they had to do is they put a battery in the game. So these games were different. When you turned the game off, it had a battery in it. So when you turn the game off, when you turned it back on, you would be right where you were left off at. Problem with those games is the battery only lasted like a couple of years. So after like 2 years, if the battery died or you kept shutting it on and shutting it off a lot and the battery died, guess what? You could never save your progress. Those games, because they were infused with a battery, those games were like $60, $70 back in the day, back in the early 90s. I believe Phantasy Star 4, if my memory serves me correct, I don't think they had save codes. They were like that. Then when you fast forward to the Nintendo 64 era, it wasn't about batteries because they did have memory cards there, but there was so much data that they had to put on these cartridges, and the cartridge technology at the time couldn't keep up with how big the game file sizes were. So it was getting more and more complicated to squeeze these games on cartridges. So the type of cartridges they had to make in order to save these games kept getting more and more expensive. So that's why games could, be all over depending upon the file size and stuff like that. Games were anywhere between $39.99 to close to $100. That's why the cartridge era games were the way that they were. The technology that was infused with them and the cost of them. Once the PlayStation came out and made it standard, well, the Sega Saturn was out before that, but once the PlayStation made it standard on how you reproduce games and did so at such a cheap fashion, the rest of the industry picked up and games were cheaper. A new era was created. So for my friends that are out there that are referencing to the cartridge era, that's a misnomer. The cartridge era was high and was the wild, wild west because of the demands and the costs of the technology being used to duplicate the games. We're no longer in that era. And if I'm going to be specific, we didn't totally lose all the money that we spent on the cartridge era because, like I said, the reason why games were high in the 90s is because of things like batteries and stuff like that. We may not have paid that cost in the game, but guess where else we're paying that cost? Memory cards, cartridges, on live cloud saves. A lot of those costs have now transfused somewhere else. So it's not like playing a game at 39, okay, let me give you an example. By the time we get to the PlayStation 4 era, okay, a game may have been $59.99 cold blood in the PlayStation 4 era, but you now have online costs, you now have cloud save costs, and now you got to have hard drives to save these games, right? So that's so all those costs for that extra $20, $30 game, $30 that was infused in the game, we're paying that elsewhere now. Sorry for the mic hit. The reason why those games were an extra $30 or $40 higher, those costs have now been infused in online gaming, cloud saves, memory cards, or hard drives. So the costs have never totally went away. So when you look at a $70 game today, it's not the same as a $70 game back then for a totally different reason. You didn't have those additional costs. That's all you were paying to play your game. Now let's factor in that in today's era, there are way more games that people want to play. Back in the NES days, the average attach rate for an NES was 8 games. You fast forward to a PlayStation 4, the average attach rate for the lifetime of a PlayStation 4 is almost 14 games. It's almost double. So people are buying more games, and in order to play those same games, they're paying more of an auxiliary cost to play those games. It's not comparable. That $70 or $80 Phantasy Star 4 game that I bought because there was the battery in there, or the $60 or $70 Zelda 2 game that you bought, That's all you paid to play the game. There was no online, there was no memory card, there was no hard drive cards, and all the additional stuff that you got to pay in order to play the game. Mind you, back in the day too, if you want to factor into it, once you bought a Nintendo controller, you had that mother sucker for life. Now we got to deal with stick drift. And people are got to buy a new controller every 3 or 4 months because they're playing more games. And the controllers now are 70, 80. What, Cold Blood, how much are the new Joy-Cons? Aren't they like $90?
Yes.
$90. So that's why I'm warning my friends that are out there using the cartridge era. You're doing it erroneously. You're not factoring in the auxiliary costs that were tethered to why that cartridge in the 90s was more expensive, that have now they haven't totally gone away. They've just transfixed themselves in other areas. So if in 2025, people are playing more games and there's more auxiliary costs associated to play those games, you goddamn right they're gonna bitch and complain about $80, $90 games. I mean, look, y'all know I'm a product of the 80s, and I'm one of the old men shaking my fist at my window talking about, oh, the good old days. Y'all know I'm like that. But let's keep it a buck here. There was a lot of dog shit that was released back in those days. And we didn't know. Like, there wasn't no, oh, man, there's a Naughty Dog making this, or, oh, man, Rockstar's make. Like, a lot of these developers, John Winklerware and all this, we didn't know who these motherfuckers were. So we didn't know what we were getting. We knew maybe Capcom games would be cool. We knew maybe if Nintendo published a game would be cool. Like, there was like maybe a couple of people that we knew that consistently worked towards quality, but any other game, we didn't know who the fuck was making the game. And that's why Blockbuster was so big back in the day, because we would see a game cover, look all dope and shit like that, and we put the game in as a piece of trash. Now, why am I bringing that up? Not to downplay that era, but to let you know that there were a lot of games that we just simply weren't interested in. There are more games we're playing today back then. So, and another reason why, if a game was $70 back then, you might just buy 2 or 3. A hardcore gamer might just buy 2 or 3 for the entire year and trade. That's why trading games was so big. Trading games was the biggest it ever was back then. Oh, you got that new Superman? All right, I'm gonna let you borrow my Blaster Master, and you can let me see that. Let me check out that Superman. So there wasn't, okay, if the game was $70, we really wanted to play this. Now, we were trading a lot of games. Now that we're in the digital era, we're trading and buying physical games. It's now being frowned upon by these companies more and more and more and more. They're making it more and more difficult to do that. A lot of this shit is digital now. So we don't have the capabilities of quote unquote trading games the way that we used to. They're doing so many things to try to discourage you from buying physical copies. That again, more games, fewer access to physical copies. You go to a GameStop today, man, it looks like a war-torn city. It's bare to the motherfucker. Like, I've been in there a couple of times, and a new game releases, and GameStop says, oh, we don't have any more left. That's how bad buying physical games is now. We don't have any more left. A lot of this shit is digital. So in an era where back in the day, again, look at the attach rate. 8 games for the lifetime of an NES is the average attach rate. We were buying less games. We may have been playing a lot of games, but we were buying less games. You bought these set of games, I bought these set of games, and we traded them. There was a lot of trading happening. Now, the average attach rate for the lifetime of a console almost double. PlayStation 4, it's 13.8. It's almost 14 games per the lifetime of a generation is the average attach rate. So more of our disposable income is going to these games than ever before. So yes, even though when you adjust for inflation, if you're looking at it by single game, of course, a single game back in 90 that's 80 is more expensive than a single game in 2025 that's 80, but it's not about the single game. It's about the annual disposable income that's being gobbled up. Because not only do I got to buy the $80 or $90 game, I got to have the online to play it, even if it's a single player game, Ubisoft. I got to have online to play it. My joystick might have fucking stick drift. I got to trade that shit in. Oh, I need space to put on that bitch. So to put my save files, got to pay extra towards the subscription for cloud saves, or I got to buy a hard drive. There's all these miscellaneous expenses that are associated to just playing your favorite game that eats away at the disposable income, where that wasn't a problem back then. Because you're only buying 2 games a year, where in this generation, you might want to, shit, a hardcore gamer might buy 6, 7, 8, might buy up to 10 games a year. Even when you adjust for the price of the cost of inflation, the annual expenditures of what gamers are going through are not the same as they were in the 80s, even though the games may have been more expensive at times. We are paying more money even when you adjust for inflation on average than you were back then. That's why people are bitching and moaning about this. Because they're sitting there thinking, fuck. For every game that I buy, look, shit, on average, I buy like 4 games a year. So it went from me spending $280 to $360. Oh, something's got to give. Now I can only buy 3 games. And that leads me to my final point, and I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Cold Blood. Because of this situation, and because those of you that are trying to argue in favor of this and using the cartridge era erroneously, you're not realizing more games are going to fail now. Why? Because there might be 2 or 3 games on average the gamers are like, yeah, I got to buy that. But that 4th game, they're going to be on the fence about. Now what's going to happen is that 4th game is not going to be bought. Who loses out on that? So then that forces the industry to say, well, we got to take less risk. We can only make the games that we know are going to sell. So you're going to get a lot of Fortnite clones. You're going to get a lot of Call of Duty clones and shit. If this Mario Kart sells at $90 a fucking pop, you'll probably get a whole bunch of Mario Kart clones. What do I always say, y'all? Y'all gotta look at this from 5,000 feet. Don't make an emotional argument and then try to caveat the facts to figure out the argument. Look at this holistically. Cold Blood will tell you, before this all started, before I got to look at this holistically, when I saw that Nintendo Direct, I was like, I'm in. I'm just gonna wait for a couple more things, but I'm more so in than I'm not. Me and him discussed some few things. I'm like, no, man, look, man, the games that I want to play ain't gonna be $90. I ain't worried about it. But then I started looking at this even more, even deeper. Looking at the residual effects over gaming as a totality. Looking at the economics of this and how we're paying Japan's part unfairly, even though they get most of their money from us in the first place. And then I had to take a step back, not just caveat the facts based upon my emotion. And I'm a business-minded dude. I'm the guy that argued while I was still capping for Xbox. I'm the dude that argued When people were like, oh man, Fortnite on PlayStation should be cross-play with everybody else too. I said, no, look, I can't be mad at PlayStation. If you want to play with PlayStation people, get you a fucking PlayStation. I argued that in the days that I was still capping for Xbox. So I'm a business-minded dude. But you got to be able to recognize when you're letting your emotions only show you some of the facts. And the fact of the matter is, number one, there was a bartering precedent already set, thanks to the PlayStation, on the cadence that this should go at, that made the companies feel comfortable and made the gamers feel comfortable. Now, the companies made a mistake and didn't keep that cadence in the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation. I get where they might want to try to, get back on track. But the cadence that gamers are comfortable with is new price at the beginning of the gen. Maybe halfway through the gen, you go up incrementally on games that really show it. That was the bartering agreement. You go against that agreement, people are going to bitch and moan, and you should be ready for it. That agreement was set fucking 3 generations ago. Damn well over 30 years ago. Secondly, talking about the cartridge era is wrong and it's misguided because, one, there was a reason why the cartridges were higher. Two, even though the cartridges were higher, we bought less games per the attach rate numbers that I showed you. And three, those costs from the cartridges, they didn't go away. The difference in the cost of the games that cost us on disc versus cartridges didn't totally go away. A lot of those costs just were tethered to new things. Online, your saves, they went to memory cards. They went to hard drives. So those costs didn't totally go away. So to game, all the support costs that you have to game, or when you factor those things in with each game, we don't even have a discussion. We don't have a discussion. So I went on for a year and a day. I'm going to read some of these comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cold Blood. And you guys let us know what you think. Let's see here. And don't forget, we give priority. I'll stop in the middle of my rant for my members. So when we see the members in here, definitely. Juice says, I can't tell you how much I agree with you, MM2K. Juice also says people who reference the cartridge era are like people referencing the 8-track era when talking about absolutely. You can't just look at the price or look at an ad. And here's another thing that you guys are doing erroneously about the cartridge era too. You guys do know that some of these ads that you're circulating around, they're Canadian ads. So my fellow people in the US, you got to be mindful of that. So when you start seeing these cartridge prices for like $120, or those are likely what do you call it? Canadian ads. So again, you guys got to do your research. But yeah, there was a reason why, a justified reason why the cartridges were so higher, and people understood it. He said MM2K is scary today. Eddie's great era for sure. Don't listen to MM2K. The NES and the SNES was the golden era of gaming. Games were great. So many different sources, way more publishers and developers. Don't get me wrong, Paul Game. There are so many games. Like one of my favorite games of all time is a game that you probably never heard of. It's called Valis 3. I love that fucking game. badass group of females going in, fighting. They were fighting in this demon world and shit like that. I couldn't tell you who the publisher was. Now, there were a lot of hidden gems back in the days, but there was a lot of trash, Paul. We can't deny that. That's why we rented games. Like, we would get games off of well-recognized IPs or had badass covers. We go to play them and they were absolute trash. You know what I mean? That's why the average attach rate for games back then through a life cycle was 8, where it's 14 now. Because there was a lot of shit out there. And then we as gamers back then, we settled on the games that we wanted to play and we knew were the shit. And we just circulated those games together. Like, it was bartering. Like, I played Atomfall earlier today. And in Atomfall, I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but in Atomfall, there is no currency. There's no in-game money. When you go trade stuff, you trade shit in your backpack for other shit that the market people would have. So that's how the Nintendo market was and the Genesis market was. If you had a game, before you went to go buy it, most motherfuckers, hey, what games you got, man? You find somebody that had a Genesis or a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo, whatever, what games you got? They go through, I got the Killer Instinct, I got this and that. Oh, word? You got Mortal Kombat? Okay, well, I got such and such. Or you would bring your games to school. All right, this is my game, you know what I'm saying? You bring the motherfuckers to school. Oh, okay, let me get that. People barter like that. All right, give me these 2 here, I'm gonna give you these 3. You know what I'm saying? Oh, let me get that. Oh, man, I don't know, I'm still playing. Now, come on, man, I'll give you 4. Okay, good, That's how a lot of games were exchanged. That's how people got access to games back in those days. So there weren't a lot of games being played, and there were a lot of games that were in circulation, Paul, and you know this, were games that were already established within the community that we knew were dope. Because another thing that we did back in the day, there was no online. So if you wanted to play a game, you had to go over to your friends' house. If they didn't trade you, well, number one, you didn't trade for a game unless you already saw it. So that same friend that I'm talking about that, has the Genesis too. All right, I'm going over to his crib. We're going to try Joe Montana football and see if I like it. Okay. All right, now I'm going home. I'm looking at my library like, oh man, I really want to play that Joe Montana football, man. Hey, yo, bro, this is what I got. Can I, that's how we did things. So the games that were in circulation were the games that was already established in the gaming community. That was the dope shit. So a lot less games were bought. Not saying games weren't tried, but once someone that we trusted by word of mouth told us that a game was trash, it wasn't in circulation. Now, another thing that helped mature our bartering system was Rent-A-Center. You can rent a game or two for $5 over the weekend. Check it out, see if you liked it, and if you liked it, you went and bought it. Sometimes you can buy the games from Rent-A-Center themselves. If you really, really like the game, like if in that weekend you didn't beat the game, because another thing we got to be jiggy about too is that a lot of these games, we be up playing them all night. We could beat them in a weekend. So that's another reason why we weren't buying these games. But it's different now. Games are longer. There's more in them. And there's a lot more auxiliary costs to them. So as great as that era, that's my favorite. The Genesis era is my favorite era of gaming. I love those Genesis games. As great as that era was, it's not fair to compare the era cost-wise to now. If you look at all the factors, it's totally different. And we haven't been rid of all the costs associated to the cartridge era, because some of those costs have just been cascaded to other things. He says the cream rises to the top. I always go off of the PlayStation 2 era for game prices. He says, what's stopping them is the tech isn't as fantastic. Laugh out loud. Yeah, like, here's my thing, Don Teasy. If they were going, which I would have been adamant against, because I like structure. As a consumer, trust me, Fortune 5, I know people get tired, man, shut the fuck up. But Fortune 500 experience for almost 30 years. I've been vice president of areas, not of the entire business, but in areas where I had managers reporting to me. So I've been in the boardrooms when big decisions have been made. I'm telling you how this works. The consumer has to always keep the business people on their toes, or they're going to take advantage of you. We are scheming every day on how to take advantage of you for the sake of the investor. We do it every day. It's so, and they call it motivational speeches. Like when you hear Zig Ziglar and Robert T. Kiyosaki and all these other motherfuckers, when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, all they're teaching you is how to manipulate the consumer so you can get more investors. That's it. That is it. Those that are familiar from not getting Zig Ziglar, all these motivational speech, Robert T. Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Steve Cook writing his shit. All they're doing, it didn't even on top of that. We have to take training modules that deal with psychology on how to manipulate the consumer. Now, nobody says, no, in order to manipulate a consumer, this is what you have. No, but they say, they'll give you scenarios where a consumer may be less likely to indulge in something. And they give you the psychological keys to make them act against their own interest. All these companies do it. All their employees go through these modules. They are trying to maximize their profit. You're trying to get the biggest bang of the buck. When this bartering system works the best, y'all meet each other in the middle. As a consumer, it's like a tug of war. I'm sorry. As a consumer, you can never lighten up on holding that rope. Because if you do, they're going to pull your ass in the mud. Because believe you me, their end of the rope is tied to a fucking tree. They're never letting go. And what they've done, sad to say, what they've done is they routinely say and do these parasocial things out in the community and get consumers to vote against their own best interests all the time. These companies are winning, and you are the losers. And when the dust settles, you sit there, well, what the hell just happened? Next thing you know, you got mud all over you. How did I end up in this puddle? Because you loosened the rope. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. They got systems in place. Their end of the tug-of-war rope is tied to a tree. It's tied to a steel rod. They don't need you to defend them. There's a balancing act here. These companies want to maximize their profits, and if they can take full advantage of you, they're going to do it. You want to get the biggest bang for your buck. That's just bartering 101. Even back in the olden days, you go to a fish market and people would negotiate prices. The Art of Negotiation, I think it was written by Zig Ziglar. A great negotiator ensures that both parties walk away feeling satisfied. That's what a great negotiator does. That realizes, look, I want to maximize things on my end. You want to maximize, how much you save on your end, but let's meet somewhere in the middle where we walk away both satisfied. See, some people think a great negotiator is someone that rips people. That's not a great negotiator. It's con artist. What it is. It's called the art of negotiation. I think Zig Ziglar wrote it or somebody else wrote it. I can't remember who wrote it. But a great negotiator is someone that by the time that they're done, even when your ass goes home, you feel totally satisfied with your purchase as a consumer. But what these companies will do is sometimes they will try tactics that they will get you to commit to something, but by the time you get home, you ain't sure about it. Oops. He said, Lionel says, I'm not being manipulated as long as they are providing great quality. He said, why do you think big boys like Apple and Google are staying away? Shout out to Cherry Man. He says, what's up? He says, yep, I agree. He says, back in the day, gamers used to close to $65. I remember. He says, that's almost a decade and a half of fantastic tech with the Switch 2 is using is laughable. Yeah, that Dante, that's my thing, bro. If anybody was going to do the incremental mid-gen bump up of maybe $4 or $5, it can't be Nintendo, bro. And it can't be Mario Kart. I'm sorry. Now, like I said, if Wolverine, they're like, yo, it's going to be $75.90, $74.99, or I don't know, Intergalactic, because they got the fucking crazy ass tech and you can't tell the difference of the game and looking out your window. And they're like, okay, this game is going to be $74.90. Well, that's kind of hard to say because it's a what do you call that shit? It's a exclusive, and I don't believe in exclusives tapping into that incremental increase. That incremental increase should be tapped in by third-party publishers, and them third-party publishers are applying top-of-the-line tech. So I can't think of okay, I'll give you a prime example. Crimson Desert, game that both Cold Blood and I have been watching, and we're looking at this and we're like, damn, this shit looks unreal. The motherfuckers come out with the game. Let's just say the game looks exactly like that, and you're doing shit in the game that has never been done before. And if they said, okay, well, this game is going to be $74.99. Now, people are going to bitch and complain, like, whoa. But a lot more people, when they see the game and see if it looks fantastic, looks top of the line, and there's shit that you're doing in that game that never been done before, then, okay, we get it. I would even defend it because I've been part of that incremental upgrade before and I understood it. But Mario Kart upgrading to 12-year-old tech? Get the fuck out of here. No. No. We don't get to do that shit. Lionel says, I do think the Switch went a little too far, but MM2K, if it was Sony next gen, they would have still cried. It's better Nintendo do it because they could. Lionel, shut your ass up. He said it's better that Nintendo takes the bullets. Here's what I think, Lionel. You are right to the extent that regardless, gamers would have cried because they had the benefit of not seeing a price hike for 2 generations. But I don't think any platform holder should be the one, and that's another problem that I really haven't jumped on. I don't think no platform holder should usher in the era of raising the price significantly. Let a third party do that. Like, I appreciate that PlayStation sat back and let Take-Two do it. They let Take-Two do it with NBA 2K20 or 21, whatever which one it was. They let them make the $70 game first, and then they follow suit later. It's okay, well, this is a new price medium that's going on. We're going to roll with it. I don't think a platform, because here's my problem, Lionel. I feel like consoles, and again, this is bartering establishments that are set, that I get where prices are going to have to go up, but I don't care about you maximizing your profits. This is how the business works. You sell your console at a loss. Now that margin of loss is, here, let's do the math real quick. So for a $500 console, normally your margin of loss is maximum $70. So that's a 14, you sell your console at a 14, anywhere between a 5, I'll say 5 to 15, 5 to 15% loss. 15 usually at launch, and then you'll dwindle it down to maybe 5, or if you're great at manufacturing like PlayStation is, you sell it at a surplus, right? You'll sell it at a 10% surplus, right? Eventually over time. You launch your consoles and you're going to sell it at a loss. You're going to entice us with your exclusives. And then Sony uses a methodology, which I feel like most publishers probably do this too, but Sony's the only one that broke down the formula for us. You're going to only 40, maybe 50% of your games on average of your exclusives are going to do well. The other 50% may not hit its margins. But because you're trying to find the next big thing that can draw people to your platform, you're going to take the risks to where at the end of the day, the sales of your exclusives, your top of the line. So let's use PlayStation for example. Your sales of Spider-Man, God of War, and Horizon, most of the money just goes to justify the cost of all the exclusives. Yeah, you may be in the black a little bit overall, but your main job is to attract people to your console, because the real money is made in your marketplace, where you just get 30% off everybody. You walking around like a mob boss. Where's my 30%? You get your 30% off everybody at no cost, and you go about your business. That's where the real money is made. That is the bartering system that was established, that both platform makers and gamers agree to. And any skew too far in one direction or the other makes it too unfair for one side. Now, granted, costs are going up for hardware, mainly because of microchips. We understand that. So, in the case of the PlayStation, we're not seeing price cuts like we've seen in previous generations. We belly ached about it, but we got it. They're still operating off the same system. And they're successful at it. That's the system that we've become accustomed to. This is the system that, makes both parties feel comfortable. They justify the business. They justify things for investors. You know what I'm saying? Now, I get granted, PlayStation has dipped in its margins, and investors are a little bit uneasy for that. So therefore, they've had to make some difficult decisions. But despite the decisions that they've made over unprecedented circumstances, generally, we're still comfortable. We're comfortable. We may not always be super ecstatic, but we're comfortable with our PlayStation 5s. In PlayStation 5, isn't negatively impacting the market. Because like I said, they didn't lead the market in the $70 game. They waited for somebody else to do it. It's different with Nintendo, Lionel. Nintendo, they are forsaking their top two selling regions, America, North America, and Europe. We're eating the cost for Japan because Japan's yen is trash. Their game should be 11,000 yen at least. Not 11,000 yen maximum. It should be 11,000 yen at least. Why do I say that? Because look at the margins that PlayStation raised the price in their homeland, Japan. They did it right. They didn't make their number one and number two areas eat the cost for Japan. They said, these are our biggest supporters. Everybody's got to eat this. And we're sorry, Japan, you're going to have to eat a little bit more because the yen is trash right now. Not Nintendo. Nintendo is selling you 12-year-old tech at current going prices for AAA consoles. Like, okay, the Switch 2 is $450. So was the PlayStation 5 digital. Are you telling me that a Nintendo Switch is comparable to a PlayStation 5 digital? I get that it's portable, but guess what? I can get a PlayStation Portal for an extra $200. And with that extra $200 that I'm paying on top of the $450 at $650, I still think there's still a bigger gap in the offerings than what Nintendo Switch is giving you. 12-year-old tech on the go, and I get that it's native, but in today's climate, how many times are we going to be in situations where we can't play on the go? I do it all the time. Like, I don't know how the portal works, but I cloud, you know, when I'm gaming on the go and I use my phone for GFN or something like that, I just use my cell data and it works great. So I don't know if you can tether your cellular signal to the portal. I don't know. But if you can do that, nothing's stopping you from gaming on the go. Unless you're like on an airplane or something like that. But if you guys don't travel and fly all the time, then what's the problem? Right? So to me, and I think to many, when we look at this, even though it's portable, the offering, at least at this point, ain't on par with a PlayStation 5 digital, but I am looking at this coming down the middle. To me, it's acceptable to me at $450 for the base unit, because I could care less about Mario Kart World. So even though I feel like that price may be a little bit inflated, it definitely is inflated because we're eating some of the costs for Japan, I'm okay with it. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it doesn't take me out of my comfortability spot. I'm cool with it. Where I have the problem is the games. And look, I get how big Mario Kart is. Me and Cole go back and forth about this all the time. He calls it a mini game. But I get how big Mario Kart is. But, and I'm not saying this to the buyer because, like, for instance, in Bulls for Life, again, I'm not saying you're doing this. I'm just using you as an example, brother. Bulls for Life might say, hey, look, I don't mind paying $90 for it. It is what it is. That's fine. But, and I can just not buy it. But the problem for me is, Lionel, is even if I don't buy it, I'm still affected. Why? Because number one, Rockstar is looking across the street and they're like, oh, hold on. Your game is not bigger than ours. Your game doesn't have nowhere near as much technology as ours. If you could charge $90, Oh, you best believe. I see your 90 and I raise you to 100. And then what happens is the rest of the market looks at that and says, well, we've advertised ourselves to investors as we're the next Grand Theft Auto. You know what I'm saying? So to justify our investors' investment into our game, we now got to go up to $90, $100. You see what I'm saying? And it's a domino effect for the market. The game that creates that domino effect should not be, definitely is not deserving to be Mario Kart. That's the argument. I don't even know if Grand Theft Auto is deserving to cause that domino effect. I don't think consumers should buckle down to a significant price hike again during the generation. I just don't agree with it. I think that the companies got to get their cadence in order like how they did before. They had a great cadence. Gamers accepted it. They need to stick to it. New price at the beginning of the generation. Halfway through, for games that are using the biggest and best technology, you might get an incremental $5 uptick. It happened PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. PlayStation 3, they partially did it. They went up another $10 at the beginning of the generation, didn't do that incremental uptick, and then in the PlayStation 4 era, they didn't go up at all. That's a business problem. You made a bad business decision. Why do consumers got to keep losing out? Because these companies are making piss poor business decisions. No, do better. And if you got to take the lumps on it, take the lumps on it. It's not my job as a consumer to ensure you maximize your profits. If you can survive and keep operating and still keep your investors without having to do this, then I don't give a fuck. You don't need to do it. But we got consumers out here arguing for companies to maximize their profits, where I'm telling you, I have firsthand experience. When they maximize their profits 99 times out of 100, that maximized profit goes to the investor. It doesn't trickle down to you. When they're successful and investors are happy, it'll start, because they want more. So they want to get more out of you, so they want to motivate you more. That's when you're likely to get the most out of these companies. Not when they've maximized their profits. Have you ever noticed, like a prime example, look at Walmart and all these places. You notice when Walmart and them first opened, they were the shit, clean, and the products you were getting were the shit. And now because everybody goes to Walmart and they maximize their profits, now the service is dog shit. Because now they've maximized their profits and they already got you. They just gonna give you whatever the fuck they gonna get you, and you're gonna eat it. You're gonna lap it up. Because they got you. It's a tug of war. Keep these companies pulling on their end of the rope. Well, it would have been a tougher sell, Lionel, if Nintendo didn't come out with a $90 game. Now, it's like Straw Zelnick. I have experience with Straw Zelnick. I actually cussed him out one time, Lionel. I cussed him out because for Stadia of all things, what was it? Oh, NBA 2K or something like that had a glitch in it. And I was mad as shit. I'm like, man, this is crazy. You charged all these prices, you punk motherfucker. And come to find out it was a Stadia problem. So I apologize to Strauss. I remember him doing conference calls about his approach to different things, not listening to him and stuff like that. Let me tell you something. As soon as Strauss saw that price drop, he was like, he got on the phone, go. Yeah, Grand Theft Auto is going to be, it's either going to be $80, $90, or $100. If Grand Theft Auto, if the standard edition of Grand Theft Auto releases at $70, I don't even know how that happens, because the investors are going to look at Strauss like, what the fuck are you doing? Mario Kart is $80, bro. If Grand Theft Auto releases at $70, which that's what I wanted to release at, I'm gonna keep fighting for that. Then that says a lot about Strauss Zelnick, and I will grow a newfound respect for the dude. If they keep it at 70, I'm gonna grow a newfound respect for the dude. Fuck Phil and all these lifetime achievement awards just because. If he keeps it at 70, Strauss Zelnick deserves an award. Because I'm telling you, based off of experience, he would be going against the desires of the board. Like every investor there at Take-Two, he would be going against them. And his argument would probably be, we don't even have to do this. This is going to cause unnecessary controversy for us. People are going to look, it's going to cause, quote unquote, what they call, it's a business industry term, reputational risk. It's going to cause a lot of reputational risk that we don't deserve. Imagine this, y'all. Everybody's expecting us to sell this game at $80, $90, $100. Imagine if we sell this game, if we keep it at 70, we'll be so beloved by the industry that, yeah, most people are already going to buy it. Add another 25% on top of that shit. And you know, we're going to be one of the most beloved companies out there. And excuse me, if he decides to do that and he says that to the board and it comes out to be true, oh my God. His bonus will be fat. So if I'm Strauss Zelnick, that's what I'm doing. If I'm Strauss Zelnick and I really care about the culture, I'm like, look, man, in order for this game to make hand over fist, I don't need to go up $10. I actually might make more money if I keep it at 70, because that's going to shock the industry and boost our reputational risk so much that gamers who weren't even in the market, which most people are, but there are a significant amount of gamers that are just like, I don't give a fuck about Grand Theft Auto. But gamers that were not in the market for Grand Theft Auto are going to pick this up and they're going to want to do it in protest versus Nintendo. That's what I would do. But he may not do it. He may just follow the normal line business impetus and expectations from the investors, which is to raise the median price of that. But it's not just about GTA, Lionel. It's going to be everything. Everything is now then going to go up. Because I also think most of them drop their prices too soon. Since Nintendo doesn't drop prices, gamers are more likely to buy at launch. Wait, if they go 90, I don't think 90 would be too bad. Oh, shit. Lionel. Lionel. No. Let me be real. Let me be real with you. If we lived in a world where companies didn't copycat each other and we had assurances that the rest of the industry would be like, you know what? We can't do what Rockstar did. Like if investors went off, didn't operate on their normal impulses and was like, yeah, we can't do what Rockstar does. I would be honest with you. I would pay $100 for GTA 6. I would. Because I have it. I would do it. But because the copycat and domino effect that this is going to cause, I can't support it. I can't support it. I wouldn't be able to support. I wouldn't be able to put my support as vocally behind $100 GTA. Now, would I end up with the game somehow? Yeah. But I wouldn't be able to put my support. I wouldn't be able to say, you know what, this is, because of the ripple effect it's going to have in the industry. I wouldn't be able to do it. All of them would want it. Yeah. You see the 2K cream will rise to the top. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Before we get out of here, let's talk. I'm seeing something online about Xbox no longer having no fan fest. And I'm seeing this from your favorite, Lionel, in Cold Blood. This is from your homie Crap Gamer. Let me put it up here. Your homie Crap Gamer puts this. It says, what about, I guess this is coming out of the event notice. It says, what about FanFest? This year's show is digital only. While we will not have a community viewing event for the showcase, we're working on plans for the 10th anniversary celebration of Xbox FanFest. We look forward to sharing more details with you at a later date after the showcase. Can you believe it's been a whole decade? Look at him try to obfuscate and get past.
Bro, actually, what the fuck are they gonna celebrate there? Are they gonna celebrate pro enhanced games?
I don't know. Yeah, what is it to celebrate?
I mean, what the fuck? The only thing to celebrate is gonna be if they get one fucking exclusive.
Yeah.
And even now, they don't even celebrate their own exclusives like that anymore. Avowed, a fucking flop. Nobody gives a fuck. South of Midnight, 2 people capped for that shit. Nobody plays it. Like, come on, bruh. Y'all not even excited for your fucking exclusives. Of course there's not gonna be a fan fest or a live show like E3.
Yeah.
Why? Why bother with that shit? And Xbox knows when they announce another fucking PlayStation game, bruh, that's the only thing these motherfuckers gonna be talking about with them. They're gonna cry. Why is it coming to PlayStation? They don't want none of that anymore. They don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah. Well, think about it this way, Cold Blood, too. Publishers normally don't have a fan fest outside of like Blizzard and Bethesda. Now Bethesda's been absorbed into Microsoft, so they're the Bethesda Con or whatever they call their shit. That's over with, right?
You mean BlizzCon?
And BlizzCon has been absorbed, so they're not having that anymore either, right? But at least I'll say for Blizzard's part, they had a fan base that wanted to see select games and that would pay the tickets and hotel stay and all that shit to go to a BlizzCon annually. Yeah, who's going to, what are you going to celebrate? Like FanFest was predicated on fans getting all creamy knuckled over Xbox trying to compete with PlayStation. That's all. This is the heart of it. Nobody was excited for the call. Everybody was just salivating over, okay, what's Xbox going to do to take down PlayStation? And now that Xbox has turned into Vin Reams off of Pulp Fiction, they've been bent over, got the ball in the mouth. They bent over to PlayStation. What's there to celebrate? So I mean, why the Fan Fest even mattered is because these people were salivating over, okay, let's see what Xbox is going to do to take down PlayStation. And that doesn't even matter anymore. So, and they don't create product good enough to be like a BlizzCon that as a third-party developer, people will come. Nope. Yeah, like you said, who wants to go pay airfare and get a hotel room to see gameplay of South of Midnight? Who the fuck want to do that? Who wants to book airfare to see the sequel to Redfall? Who wants to do that? You going to travel to see DLC of Starfield? What are we doing here? To finally see the bug fixes for Forza Motorsport 7? What's there to celebrate? There's nothing there. Because it was Cold Blood. It was never about the quality or the output from Xbox. It was always, nobody ever celebrated what Xbox was actually giving you. It was, We want Xbox to take down PlayStation. What are they going to show us to take down PlayStation? And now that factor is gone, like look, I'm looking on Twitter. I don't see nobody bitching about this except for Crap Gamer. Like Crap Gamer's the only one bitching about this. I see ponies making fun of it, but nobody's bitching about it. There's in emails to fans and look like Jeff Keighley. He's having he couldn't wait to put this out here. An email to fans, Xbox announced it will not host its annual Fan Fest event on June 8th around the Xbox Games Showcase, as the show will be digital only in 2025. So, yeah.
But isn't that kind of bad for him?
Who bad for? Jeff will never, even if it is, cutting off his nose to spite his face, Jeff will never miss out on an opportunity to report bad news for Xbox.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of bad news for him? Because these Xbox fanboys ain't gonna come to his show afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. It is. But he don't care. He doesn't care.
As long as it's taking Xbox
down, he'll lose money.
Bro, he's a devil in your head, bro.
He doesn't care, man. I think it's funny. I think it's absolutely funny.
It was always funny that he hates the Xbox.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. But I think that is it for today's show. Just wild information from Nintendo again. I think people are misunderstanding where we're coming from with this. If this all was in a vacuum and all it was about was Nintendo people paying for these games, I wouldn't care. But with Mario Kart, you got to think about this. Even if you love Mario Kart, even if you love, if you got a fucking Luigi tattoo on the bottom of your neck, think about this. Mario Kart is going to be $90. Motherfucking Ori and the Blind Forest might be 120 and shit. Ori 3 might it's gonna ripple through the community. Like the makers of Ori are gonna be like, what? Oh yeah, we're coming out at $150. You know what I mean? Like the ripples through the industry are gonna be crazy. So just gotta think about it. And again, I was in the market for a Nintendo Switch 2. I was in the market for one, but I can't support that. I see where things are going. I see how these companies are trying to take advantage of gamers. They're taking advantage of our lack of knowledge. That's why a lot of us tried to argue and justify Nintendo raising these prices and trying to make them seem a little bit more innocent in doing this by going back to the cartridge era. The cartridge era is a completely different set of circumstances that, if you look at everything in totality, we didn't escape the cost of the cartridge era in totality, because some of the things that the cartridges were doing, we needed other things to do when the cartridges went away. There were no more batteries in the games to keep our saves. So there were memory cards. Or you had to get cloud saves. So you had to get an online subscription. Or you had to get a hard drive. You had to buy hard drives now. Right? There's just so many auxiliary costs that are associated that eat away at your disposable income to buy games that were not a factor back then. And the fact that we're just simply buying more games now because there are more games being made, therefore creating a scenario where more games are being desired that our disposable income that we can allot towards gaming is being eaten away at because as prices go up, that's less games you can buy. Like I said, you may annually buy, for instance, 4 games. Well, if the games shoot up to $90, you can only buy 3 now. Because think about it. If you buy 4 games at 70, that's $280. But to keep around that $280 price range, now you can only buy 3 at 4 games at 70 is $280. To keep at that 70 price range, or that $280 price range, you're going to have to buy 3 at 90, which is $270. You can't go to full 360. No pun intended. You understand what I'm saying? Bulls for Life says, that's why I'm Gamefly, man. Yeah, if you guys are in the market for a Switch, my suggestion is Gamefly it or buy it used. Like go to your local GameStop or wherever you can and buy that motherfucker used. You can even go to GameStop online and just buy a used copy. You know, particularly for like if you're like me, who's like, I really wanted to switch for the Switch 2 for some of the Switch 1 games that would be enhanced. That's going to be the bulk of my library, at least for the first year. That would have been the bulk of my library for the first year. And maybe the 1 or 2 games a year that come out, or maybe 3 that come out that I'm interested in. Now I know I'm not stuck at playing them at 30 frames per second. You know, and I'm talking about games like, you know, Xenosaga and Metroid, or, you know, or some of the other third-party games like the JRPGs that I would want to play at 60. But if you fell in the same scenario, my suggestion for you is to go and get that Switch 1 library, say used. Get it used. Get your Switch Online, because if you get the Switch Online package, then you can get the enhancements for free. So you either buy the enhancements a la carte at like what, $10 to $20 a pop, or if you subscribe to Switch Online, which I think is what, $20 a year in the US, you'll get the enhancements for free. So you can save yourself a lot of money. Now, knowing that, why am I not in the market for a Nintendo Switch 2? Because they took it off for pre-order and they are now going to raise the price again. And they're not making any adjustments in Japan. Like the prices in Japan are irresponsibly low. They're irresponsible. Do you think Sony wanted to raise the prices in Japan like that? In their homeland? Like Japanese companies are big time nativists. They're really about their homeland. Why do you think that the Japanese companies that developed for Sony when the 360 was like the more popular device, you know what I'm saying, that they just stopped making console games and went to making mobile games? Because they're nativists. They don't fuck with nobody out of Japan. They don't want to boost some. If a Japanese company is competing in a sector, they're going to put all their weight behind a Japanese company. And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually think that's admirable. But they're still a business and they can't be fiscally irresponsible like that. So they had to raise the price of the consoles that they sold domestically because of the falling of the yen. that killed Sony to do that, that pained them to do that. But they did it because it was fiscally responsible. And it was responsible to their consumer base. Despite their nativist tendencies, they still did the right thing. And everybody, oh, Nintendo, Sony's greedy. I'm not going to sit there and act like Sony is some fucking, you know, there's some non-profit company. Fuck no, they're not. They take advantages of situations too. Definitely. Boy, y'all can sit there and talk all that shit about Sony and I ain't got nothing to say for Nintendo? Fuck out of here. The price of this shit is egregiously low in Japan. And even though Japan is number 3, by us absorbing the costs that should be there in Japan, that still raises our prices up significantly too. So when you look at everything, even though there are some things, you know, like I could go get GameFly or I could go buy them used or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Just the fact that the price could go up again beyond my comfortability of $500 and how they're negatively impacting the entire industry and, you know, the other things that I mentioned, I can't support it. I can't support it. All right. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to try to record something real quick before I got to get back on at 1 for the members. I didn't forget about you, but I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow, record something real quick. And then we're going to get out of here. So with that said, I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. Till next time, you all have a wonderful gaming day. And if you want to become a member, hit that join button. You'll get access to the content that we do Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss it. All right. Peace.